Welcome to season 2 of the Bigger Than You podcast, your go-to weekly podcast that blends energetics and mindset to help you do whatever it takes to bring your vision to life whilst having fun on the way. I'm Jenna Holloway, your host and multi-award-winning intuitive hypnotherapist and mindset coach. My purpose is to help mission-led business owners and visionaries who want to inspire change by leading the way in a space that otherwise may feel unnerving and too difficult. This is Bigger Than You. Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. And I am really excited to have a new guest on our podcast today. And yeah, so excited for our chat because it has opened up new doors, new understandings for me, and I'm excited to share her with you. So welcome, Lauren. Lauren's an expert in human design and so much more. So I'm going to hand over to you, Lauren, to introduce yourself. You do a much better job than I will.
Thank you so much for having me. So as she delightfully introduced me, I am Lauren Ray. I am a mindset coach and expert in human design and subconscious reprogramming, and just really excited to be on here today to talk about human design more and share this with, Jenna's audience.
Brilliant. So just in case my audience are listening and they have never heard of human design, how would you go about explaining what it is?
Well, to be fair, I only heard about it for the first time about a year and a half ago. So it's totally fine if no one's literally has any idea what I'm talking about, because I didn't a year and a half ago. It came to me because one of my clients was training in human design. I was like, what is this magical thing? And then just my own personality trait, I then went deep into it. And I think I bought like so many trainings. So human design is essentially, it's a kind of an energetic blueprint of how we are best designed to function, move through the world. It's basically a kind of blueprint of who we are, but it pulls from astrology, Chinese I Ching, the chakra system. So a lot of people will already be aware of astrology. A lot of people maybe already be aware of the chakra system, but it also pulls from other things like neuroscience and biochemistry. Now, ask me anything about those individually, I'll probably have not a lot of information, but collectively they come together and create what is known as the human design blueprint, and your human design specifically. And everybody has a unique human design, except identical twins 1 second apart, because they'll be the same.
So it can literally change from one, because my girls, I've got twin girls in case people don't know, but they are 31 minutes. I hope that's right. I think it's 31 minutes apart. And yeah, I haven't looked them up yet, but it would be so interesting to see. I mean, how different, is it 1 minute that it can change from 1 minute to the next? It can change your human design?
I don't know the specifics, but I know that, within 30 minutes, there could be a couple of differences, because essentially the way that it's done is like, it's all based on, so the day that you're born, the time that you're born, and the location, because essentially it's pulling from like the planetary alignments and like essentially what's going on in the planet. So within 30 minutes, something may have shifted. So within 30 minutes, I probably would expect to see maybe 1 or 2 tiny nuances, but I would expect them to have the same baseline foundational information. Like I would assume they're the same human design type. So for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, there are 5 human design types, which are known as projectors, manifestor, generators, manifesting generators, and reflectors. Then there are the 9 energy centers, so head, ajna, throat. I won't go through all of them. Then there's 64 gates and there's 36 channels, there's 6 different lines, there's 12 different profiles, and there's 192 life paths. So there's a lot of information. So I would say within 30 minutes apart, I would assume most of that information is the same, but you probably expect to see a couple of gates and maybe a couple of nuances. So I think we should look at your daughter's charts, definitely.
Yeah. So how does it benefit you to know your human design? And actually, I'd love to just come at this from a personal perspective. Lauren did my human design reading a couple of weeks ago, and it was really fascinating. And I feel really blessed to be at the stage where everything was confirming what I know about myself already and what I'm already doing. And Lauren will explain this better in a minute, but you've got the, I hope I get this right, or might kind of mess it up a little bit, but you've got like the positive side of your human design or your personality, your character traits, and then there's like a shadow side where if you are, let's say, living in survival mode, that the fear part of you will come out and show that. And it helps if in coaching to know your human design, because it helps you to get the best out of yourself. So in this reading from Lauren, she did my human design reading and told me all about myself. And as I was listening, it's really, really cool to basically just have confirmation that, I'm in alignment, because that was the theme, wasn't it? All the way through. It's like, yeah, brilliant, I'm in alignment there. But if I had that reading, if I'd come across human design and had that reading, let's say 2 years ago, it would have been like a massive eye opener for me, a complete game changer. And I think it, goes, it kind of is really cool because it shows me how much I've evolved myself in the last couple of years. So
I would say that you described it beautifully in the sense that, so the thing is with human design is like the really key information I always want to get across to people is there's no good or bad, right or wrong, better or worse. Like some people get all uppity about like wanting to be a certain design type because they think one is better than the other. Some people get uppity about like, oh, I wish I had a defined heart center. People get all kind of in their head about like what is considered better or worse. There is no better or worse. And the way that I personally use it and how most people use it, I mean, the human design community, people use it in multiple different ways, but essentially it's awareness. That is it. It's awareness of who you are essentially supposed to be energetically. And I think what I love about it so much is that, like in your case, we went through it and yeah, you were super in alignment in so many ways. Me personally, I love my human design chart. I always look at it and I'm just like, I'm so happy to have that. And I pull from it kind of almost a confirmation and permission of who I'm supposed to be. I use it as a way of giving myself even more permission to be the things I innately feel like I want to be. But actually, I was massively out of alignment with a number of parts of my chart. I'm a manifestor, and that's very common for manifestors to be out of alignment because of a number of different things. So it's taking me, and I'm still working on aligning to my chart, it's taking me a while to kind of decondition certain areas, but it's given me the blueprint of like, okay, well, this is what a high vibe version of your chart looks like. Maybe the heart center. If you were in like alignment with this is what it would feel like. But if you're in the low vibe, sort of like in a low expression of this gate or this center, it looks like this. And so it gives you guidance of like, okay, well, I need to work on this. Like I'm clearly conditioned here, or maybe there's a part of my chart that's like if you're in the low vibe, there's pride or low self-worth is getting in the way. Okay, well, that's definitely true. Let me work on that. So for me, I use it as a way of awareness of who we are and awareness of where we need to do the work. And, because I specifically work on building people's, confidence and courage and doing subconscious work like you do, I use it to go, right, okay, where do we need to decondition and where are the fears that we need to be mindful of? And especially when it comes to fear, like fear is a completely natural thing. And so it's really fun for me to be able to say to someone like, you keep having this fear of failure, a fear of whatever. I'm like, that's never going to go away. It's literally in your chart. But what we can do is work together for you to move and live your life with it. And it kind of gives people a lot of, I think you described this in us, some people describe it in the session, like kind of a shoulders drop, like, oh yeah, this is who I am kind of energy.
Yeah. I had a moment of that actually. When you were reading my chart, you said that I was a responder. And what really clicked into place for me there was, I know that I'm not the best conversation starter. And that's really cool for you to read that in my human design, because it kind of makes me not feel wrong that I'm not a conversation starter. Whereas I know that you said that in your chart, you find it much easier to start a conversation. So get me talking about something, I am on a roll, but it's not in my chart to start, to initiate the conversation. So that was an example where I was like, oh, that's really, really cool to find out that, there's nothing wrong with me for being that way. That is literally what's in my chart. So that is who I am.
Exactly. And just for those listening, so that nuance there is, so as a manifestor myself, the way that I move through life is I'm here to initiate. I'm here to inform people, but my energy is around initiating. So yeah, I have no problem going up to like networking events on my own and just going up and just speaking to random people. Like I have no problem doing that at all. But Jenna, you're obviously as a generator, your way of moving through life is to respond. And so I love the fact that landed for you, because it's like, yeah, then there's nothing wrong with you that you can't just go into a room and randomly talk to people. But yeah, there's so much in your chart. If I come and ask you a question, you're good to go. Yeah. You need something to respond to. And just even like that small piece of information can be really helpful to people.
Yeah. Another thing that's just dropped in as you were talking there is the way I do my stories on Instagram. I don't go on there if I don't have anything to say. Like I'm not going, I don't do anything that doesn't feel right. So if I don't have anything to say, I'm not going to make something up to start a conversation. When I have something to say, I will respond to that and go on and say something. But sometimes it's not till like 4:00 or even in the evening once my girls are in bed that something will pop in. I'll be like, oh, I want to share this. I'm not going to just crack on and get on there at like 7 a.m. just because I'm awake. And so actually, knowing what is in your human design chart gives you permission to sort of, I don't know, to really lean into exactly who you are. And it can be so eye-opening, especially if there's areas in your life to work on that can give you even more guidance. And one thing I'll pick up on that I've kind of been aware of in the community, or it just in business, like I've seen people talk about their human design, and I've seen them unfortunately use their knowledge in a limiting way. And that is it's so misused, isn't it? Because like if you know your human design, you look into it, it doesn't give you a box to sit in and only be that. It doesn't, you holding yourself back with that knowledge rather than allowing yourself to flourish. And it's crazy for it. I can't think of a specific example. Maybe you've seen it and you want to talk about that.
Oh, I see it all the time. And I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because, yeah, I mean, it's ultimately like anything else. Any tool can be used to limit yourself if you essentially wanted to. Like anyone can use anything as a limitation. And with human design, that's why I'm always so mindful and careful about how I talk about it with my clients, because, I don't talk a lot about human design on my social media, but I use it as a tool with my clients. But I've seen people then find out like they're a projector, for example. And I think projector is the most common version of this, whereas projectors are their strategy. So your strategy to move through life is to respond. I'm here to inform people about what the hell I'm doing so I don't annoy people. And with projectors, they have to wait for the invitation. And there's a whole other things. And I see this more with projectors, but then they get it in their heads that they cannot initiate things, they can't create things, and they have to basically wait around for things to come to them. And a lot of times when people will say like, oh no, I can't, I'm a projector. Like, oh, I can't do that because I'm not supposed to initiate. Oh, I can't do that undefined root center. Now, the thing is with human design is that it's not saying that even when you're looking at people's, life paths and like what they're here for, and so there are certain business channels, but I know multiple seven-figure business owners who have none of the quote unquote business channels in their human design chart. So we can take it really literally. Like I have all the business channels in my chart. My friend who's making 7-8 figures in her business has no business channels. It doesn't really mean anything. Ultimately, it's everyone can do everything. It's the human design chart tells us how we best go about that. That's it. So everything is possible to everybody. It's just like, if a way doesn't feel good, let's use your human design chart to get you there in a way that does feel good. And that's it. But yeah, I find the limitations that people put onto themselves. I mean, as a subconscious mindset coach, we just limit ourselves constantly. And I do see that quite rife within the human design community to a certain degree.
Yeah. And I think if you're going to be limiting yourself outside of human design, then it's natural you're going to end up limiting yourself when you find out about your human design. So message to you guys, once you find out your profile, if you look into this and you find out what your human design is, it's supposed to be a tool to empower you into your strengths and work on the areas to work on, but in an empowering way. Don't let yourself hold yourself back by giving yourself a label. It's just so misguided.
Yeah. And just on that note, before I forget to mention it, if anyone wants to find out what their human design chart is, there's a couple of places you could go to. So mybodygraph.com is the one that I personally use. There's also one called myhumandesign.com, but honestly, if you Google human design chart, you'll find one of the top 3 websites that do it. And I think we talked about this in our session, Jenna, but like when you're first starting on your human design journey, like when you look at your chart, it's incredibly overwhelming. There are centers and colors and channels and gates and numbers and planets. There's a lot of information. And so I would really recommend anyone who's just beginning to just focus on the following few pieces, which I'll say now, but look at your human design type, which is what I mentioned about, you're a generator, I'm a manifestor. Look at your strategy, which is how you best move through life. Look at your not self theme and your signature. And look at your authority, which is how we best make decisions. And I think for me, this is my least favorite part of my chart. And anyone with an emotional solar plexus sort of authority, I would say has the same response to this. So as a generator, you obviously make your decisions best through your sacral, which is your gut response, your yes, no. For me, I have to deal with my emotions to make decisions. And as someone who's suppressed and ignored their emotions for most of their life, was my worst nightmare. But what I love about it is it's now empowered me to really, really pay attention to my emotions, which is obviously healthy in multiple ways. But because of my human design even more, I have really had to attune to my emotional state and really had to attune into my emotional needs and feel into things rather than what has been my habit thinking. I have to feel into things now. And so that's been really empowering for me. But those are the kind of core things to focus on first before you kind of fall down the rabbit hole of gates and channels.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember anything that really stands out from what you said to me, because I think, like we said earlier, a lot of it was just confirmation that I am in alignment.
I think one thing would be helpful, because a lot of your listeners like business owners and coaches.
Yeah.
So one thing that I found particularly useful as a coach. Obviously, as an individual, as a human being, I find human design really, really powerful and really useful. But as a coach, I have found knowing my design and knowing how different it is to other people's design really helpful. Because just to give you an example, I rebuilt my entire business in Kajabi, moved all my email funnels, my marketing, everything. I basically rebuilt my entire business in like 3 or 4 days. Because when I'm on and I'm ready to go with something, I can initiate, I can take action, I've got the drive, I can go, but then I might rest for like a couple of days. But I can basically build an entire business within like 2 or 3 days. Whereas some of my other clients, it might take them like 3 weeks to figure out like to do one thing. And it's like, when I first started coaching, although I know generally speaking, everyone's different. And I was like, why can't you just like do it? Kind of like, let's just do it. But I realized this from a purely energetic point of view, not just like, anything else, but a purely energetic point of view. My capacity in my human design chart, I can deal with things very last minute, similar to you, defined root center, very last minute. I can handle a lot of stress last minute. When I have the energy to go, I can go quickly and I can do it fast. And so for me, it's just given me even more awareness of like the energetic nuances between people. And that allows me to coach people slightly differently. But I personally find it really helpful to know my client's human design chart, just because it allows me to understand their energetic blueprint so much better and know the difference between mine and theirs. And then on a personal level, I know we talked about this in our session, just in the fact that like in my relationship, I have a defined root, my partner has an open root. So I know our capacity for like lastminute.com stress is very different. So I'm mindful of that now.
I'd love to know what your take is on this or your experience, but I know because the way I am and the way my energy is, and, I'm not an expert on the human design thing, but because of what's in my human design makes me the way I am. And then, like you've been on retreat with me in Lisbon where you saw me kind of give my opinion on something. And I had it, a couple of people said to me, when you've got something to say, Jenna, it's just like you put your hand up and it's just like a mic drop moment. You deliver with something really powerful. Mm-hmm. And I don't filter myself at all. And that's really key, like in the work that I do. But I've also come to learn that it's really, really important for me to only work with fully aligned clients, because somebody who is a mismatch for me will potentially misunderstand or misinterpret my energy as, like I'm rushed or something, but actually like I care deeply about every single one of my clients. And so for me, it's so, so important that the people that I work with get my energy. And that is why I'm fully committed, and it's natural for me to be fully expressed in my content, in my podcast, everywhere, because I only want fully aligned clients. So with that being said, would you imagine, like if we were to look into like the human design of my clients, like is an energetic match, would I, as a generator, would I get a generator as a client, or how does that work?
I'm apprehensive to say that there is like a kind of hard and fast rule on this, because I don't think there is. I've only ever had one manifestor client for one session. I've never had another manifestor client. That's also just statistically speaking, it's only 8% of us in the world. Weirdly, I've had quite a few reflector clients, even though they're only 1% of the population. So I get a lot of projector clients, reflector clients, and then generator and manifesting generator clients, but very rarely a manifestor client. I would say, so you can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it that if your energy's out there, you'll attract people that either match your energy or you have something that they don't have. Yeah. So I typically find that what I have in my chart, I tend to attract a lot of people with defined hearts, which is quite rare. There's like 40% of the population has got a defined heart, or maybe 30% of the population. A lot of my clients have defined hearts other than my projector, not apart from my reflector clients. So I think that's always interesting, that I attract people that seem to have a lot of energy from their heart center. But I also find that you will attract people that you have things that they don't. So your capacity to, like, your ambition and your drive and your sort of drive from your root center, your kind of willpower from your heart center, that means that you're great for holding people accountable for things and really having that energy. The fact that you have such a kind of consistent energy of communicating from your ajna to your throat center and communicating that out, you'll probably attract people who want the things that you have, or have the things that you have but aren't in their alignment with it. That's in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they see part of themselves in you. But there's also a thing about channels with human design where we actively seek out people who kind of complete our other channel. Like we're always seeking for the person who has the other channel. So I often find this in partnerships and relationships. Like I think I mentioned to you my parents, I looked at their charts and it's like the most cheesy thing, but their charts literally complete each other. You know, where one has the undefined head, the other one has the defined, where one has the channel this, the other one matches the other one and it becomes complete. Like it's very cheesy. But I don't think it's like we will always attract generator clients, but I'd be curious to see if you started tracking it yourself. It'd be interesting to see what patterns emerge, because as I said, I have a lot of reflect clients and a lot of people with defined hearts in any other type, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really just kind of from a business strategy perspective, and I bang on about this all the time about being your authentic self, being full expressed, because then you attract the dream clients, because they get your energy, because you're putting out your authentic self. But I've experienced it early in my career where I worked with somebody who didn't fully get me. The feedback they gave me was that they thought, you know, I was rushed in sessions, and that was just obviously that client's perception. But from that point, I was like, right, okay, that's definitely not the case. But it's really important that people get me. And I don't know what I've done since then. I know I'm definitely more fully expressed. That was very early days. And I'm definitely my full authentic self now. And so it never happens anymore. Like people that work with me are just, it's great, isn't it? You know what I mean? When you've got a fully aligned client, it's like, yeah, you vibe. That's it. I can't really think of another way to say it.
But I think that comes from exactly what you said, like the more you can be online, because my favorite thing is when clients sign up to work with me and they're like, you're exactly like the same as you are on Instagram. Like I say, I've never spoken to them before. They've just seen a bit of my Instagram. They say you're exactly the same in our sessions. I'm like, yeah, I'll drop an F-bomb here and there. I'll swear. I'm really passionate and I'm really kind of driven in my energy, but also very kind of compassionate and empathetic and sort of supportive. But I think that this is essentially how I use it most with my clients. It's like, how can I use their human design chart to unlock the parts of them that they really need to be showing more of? And like, how can they, I think in your case, the fact that you don't filter yourself, I mean, that's the dream. You know, that's the dream that so many people just need to stop filtering themselves quite so much. I mean, so, you know, I use people's human design charts to go, okay, well, this is in your chart. This is how we can use your profile to amplify your marketing. This is how we can use this part of your chart to amplify this. And I kind of pull out things where I could go, how can you be more you? Like I had one client, I think it was my first client that I had after I'd been training in human design. Like she was the first client that I had a session with. I was like, right, I'm going to start bringing human design into my work. And I'd worked with her before. And she kept saying how she really wanted to be a speaker, but she kind of only said it to me very quietly, very timidly. The first thing I did is I looked at her chart and I pulled out a couple of things specifically to say, there are things in your chart that tell me that you are supposed to lead and you're supposed to be a speaker. You have the capacity to speak and to lead and to be a really kind of influential person. Flash forward like 6 months later, after me telling her from a human design chart that she has the capacity to lead and be a speaker, she's now being flown across America to do speaking gigs, and she's booking gigs, and she now has like a mentor in speaking, and she's got a whole new website for her speaking opportunities. Like it's incredible what she's done with it. And it's solely come from her own human design chart, giving her own permission. Like it's not coming from me. It lands differently. If I said to her as a coach, you can do it, it's going to land to a certain degree, but me saying it's literally in your energetic, like your blueprint, it just gave us so much permission to really run with it. And it's been incredible to see.
That's amazing. Oh, that's so cool. It gave me chills. Lauren, there's something that people don't know that I know about you that needs to come out in this podcast. Tell us something interesting about you that has nothing to do with human design.
I know what you're trying to refer to. The fact that I'm a singer-songwriter, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sure she's reading this. Yes. So prior to becoming a coach, I still am a singer-songwriter, but my career prior to pandemic and becoming a coach full-time. So I'm a recording artist and songwriter. And it's been through my own journey as a recording artist and songwriter and doing the work to become more courageous and put myself out there. What I didn't realize is I was deconditioning my human design chart even back then before I even knew about it. But a lot of my journey in personal development has been to allow myself to stop being so filtered. Because when you're in a songwriting session, you can't be filtered. You've got to just be expressed. As a songwriter, I need to be in touch with my emotions. That's something I need to work on. And that led me to being a coach. So now I am a coach and a recording artist and songwriter. So yeah.
Amazing. I always remember, so we flew back from the retreat in Lisbon together and we just got put to get next to each other on the plane. And
that was so sneaky.
Yeah, that whole journey back, like I just remember so clearly you telling me all about that. And yeah, just so fascinating. And just, when you have a conversation with somebody, you just learn like a different perspective and just grows your understanding, and just gives you a different perspective on life, and like new perspectives, new understandings. And it's really cool.
I think that's what was nice about Portugal. I mean, it's nice about any in-person interaction, but like we meet so many people now in our business, in our line of work, with so many interactions online, and we can be bypassing. But to sit with someone forced on a plane, so next to each other, like the fact that we got put together is incredible, because we did not book our flights together. But to actually have some time where you get to know people beyond what we're supposed to be talking about. We talk about business, we talk about, growing our businesses, but actually me finding out about you and your family and your journey with that, and then you finding out about my music. It's so nice to actually have sometimes an in-person connection where you can just sit and just talk about anything other than what you're normally talking about. So yeah.
I trained during like the pandemic, and so all of my work's always been online, and I'm so looking forward to the future of, obviously I'll still be, because I love working with people all over the world, so my business is going to stay online, but I am looking forward to doing more in-person events. It's just a different energy, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm the same. As I said, I started my business in the pandemic, so everything's been virtual, and I have 2 clients who are in the UK that I have met up with for like coffee or drinks, and one of them's now become really good friends, and we're always drinking, and then it's like trying to switch between friend and coach. But yeah, I think for me this year, one of my to-dos is to be more in person with things, and I've been actively signing up for networking events, because I do love just meeting people randomly, and as a manifestor I get tired pretty quickly, so I can do it for a short period of time, then I have to go home. But I just think more in-person events to balance out how much screen time we get will be really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I'd like to ask, Lauren, is what next? If somebody's listening, what would you recommend for them if they wanted to find out more about human design?
Yeah, so I would recommend going, so first and foremost, get you'll all know the day you're born, the location and the time. And when it comes to the time, as accurate as possible. Like some people freak out about this, as close as possible. If you don't know, it's like, 1:32, but maybe you think it's around 1:30, just get it as accurate as possible. And then go to one of those websites like mybodygraph.com or myhumandesign.com. Now, as I mentioned before, it's a lot of information. So yeah, I would recommend getting your chart and getting your information, but having a reading is really powerful, because you look at your chart for the first time and it's like alien information. It's just like looking at an alien chart. So I would recommend booking a reading with someone who knows what they're talking about to kind of get you started on the journey. I obviously offer those readings as well. So if anyone's interested in a reading, just slide into my DMs on Instagram and I'll let you know. But you can always book them in my link in my bio as well on Instagram, which is at I am Lauren Ray.
Yeah, brilliant. We'll put the information in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lauren. And thank you for teaching me about my human design. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more and, playing to my strengths even more. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Bigger Than You podcast with your host, Jenna Holloway. If this episode has been valuable to you, please share it with a friend or leave a review.